The greatest speed triple ever made. That's Triumph's bold headline marketing claim of its updated flagship naked bike. You'd hope so, really, wouldn't you? The alternative, not the best speed triple we've ever made, wouldn't entice to ownership of the latest version. So is it a vacuous marketing statement masking what is really just a meagre round of updates to the long-standing model, or simply a statement of fact? I've just been to the press launch ride in Almeria, Spain, to find out. So what about the engine? Well, actually, it is a fairly significant round of upgrades that the Speed Triple has received, including lean angle optimised ABS and traction control if you go for the fancy RS edition, as opposed to the base model S edition. The RS was the only one provided for test by Triumph. But don't be distracted by rider aids, nor the new TFT colour dash. The most important update is to the 1050cc triple engine. It's been tweaked for more power and torque. It makes 150 horsepower instead of 140, and it's at 10,500 RPM instead of 9,500. And the red line is also a bit higher at 11,000 instead of 10,000. So 7% more power. It might not sound world changing, but with those extra revs, it unleashes a bit of a new character to the Speed Triple. It just makes it a bit more eager in the top end of the range, and with more to give, it feels a bit more of a fully fledged super naked. I was never quite sure if it qualified before with its 140 horsepower in a class where 160 and higher revving is a bit more typical. But the Speed Triple retains the manageable character that probably set it apart from some of its competitors with its less aggressive throttle response. The build of power through the range is as linear as I think it's probably possible to be, and the spread of torque means that from about 5,000 RPM upward, there's really never any pressing need to change down for more drive. But if you really want to, the RS edition's optional quick shifter will make it quick and easy. It works both ways, up and down, and it's really smooth, it's really slick. Peak torque is up a claimed 4% to 86.2 pounds-foot, and it makes more power and torque through the range, according to Triumph. The Speed Triple comes with 3 preset riding modes: rain, road and sport, plus an additional track mode with circuit optimised ABS and traction control if you go for the RS version. Rain reduces power to 100 horsepower, and there's also a customisable mode where you select your own combination of ABS, traction control and throttle map settings. Both versions of the Speed Triple, the S and the RS, allow you to switch off the ABS and traction control altogether. The initial throttle response is less jerky than I've kind of come to expect of high performance motorcycles, which have to meet the rigid demands on fueling of the latest emission limits. It still feels a little bit on-off sometimes in sport or track mode, and in those two they're the same in terms of throttle response, but it's not so bad that it's difficult to get on with. Handling. So it's 189 kilograms dry, the RS version, and that's 3 kilograms, a claimed 3 kilograms lighter than the high-spec edition it replaces. That was the Speed Triple R, so the name has changed as well. The base model, the Speed Triple S, weighs the same as before at 192 kilograms. The chassis is the same twin spar aluminium design, but weight savings have been made in the detail, including, for example, the RS's new titanium Arrow silencers, which have carbon fibre end caps and a heat shield. It's a bike that changes direction with little requirement for conscious thought or physical effort, and one you could throw around all day without getting tired. The bars sweep gently toward you for a natural riding position, and I didn't think about the seat in the whole day's ride, which can only mean comfort. The RS comes with a more padded comfort seat for the rider as standard. A new inertial measurement unit monitoring chassis orientation in the RS version gets you that lean angle optimised traction control and cornering ABS. And on the road, together with the grippy Pirelli Diablo Super Corsa SP tyres, which are retained from the previous version, that provides loads of confidence for braking late and getting on the power early in corners. But what a shame there wasn't a better chance to test it on track. You know, we've gone all the way to Almeria and we went for a session at the circuit, and the moment we rolled out of the pit lane it started to rain, and it just got heavier as the session went on until eventually everybody gave up. The rear was slipping under even modest drive and lean out of corners. So that was a shame. But the road is where this bike is going to be used most, I think. The suspension is unchanged, so you get full adjustability at both ends, but the S has Showa components, while the RS has higher spec Öhlins bits. The brakes are also basically the same, with Brembo 4-piston radial monoblock calipers at the front and a 2-piston Nissan at the back, although Triumph says the rear pad is different with better bites. You could have swapped the pad yourself, couldn't you? The power of the front is really impressive though, and usefully you can adjust not only the span, the distance between the bar and the lever, but also the ratio of bite to pressure applied, so you can kind of adjust the rate of progression that it gives you through the lever. Equipment. So this is an area of important updates. Both versions get that new TFT colour dash, which changes layout according to riding mode. In Sport, for example, the rev counter arcs across the width of the display, which is quite nice because you want to see the rev counter, don't you, clearly when you're in those modes. While in Road or Rain, it moves to the right hand side to give more prominence to the speedometer. And you can have it illuminated dark digits on white or white digits on dark. The switches on the handlebars are now backlit. I've often thought, while trying to locate a high beam switch on an unlit road, how useful it would be to have backlit switches and how stupid it is that we don't. But as the launch ride was entirely in daylight, there wasn't really an opportunity to validate the theory. Also new is cruise control as standard, and it's not the kind of the single button sorts that Triumph just put on the bobber. It's the more traditional kind, which lets you press up and down buttons to fractionally adjust your speed once you've set it. And I made use of that in soaked leathers, the motorway ride back to the hotel, and also the heated grips, which were nice, but they're an accessory. And on the RS, you get a keyless ignition, which means you press a button to start the bike, another to stop it, and a third to engage the steering lock. And you do all that without taking the keyless fob out of your pocket. So what do we like? Triumph says it's the best sounding speed triple ever. I don't know about that. You'd have to listen to them all next to each other, wouldn't you? And then you wouldn't be able to hear anything. But they are not wrong about it sounding really good. The RS's Arrow silencers make an old-fashioned throaty bark as the revs rise. What don't we like? So another thing Triumph was boasting about was that it has a higher quality finish, they say, with new high gloss cast alloy wheels, restyled silencers on the S, and carbon bits on the RS. But I can't help thinking, and I'm sure from some of your comments on Facebook that some of you feel the same way, that it's a bit meh, a bit samey. If it's the greatest speed triple ever, then probably it shouldn't look almost exactly like the old one. Verdict. The old speed triple, I think, felt a bit more of an all-rounder than the other Super Nakeds, a bit less single-purpose brute. Still really powerful at 140 horsepower, but with a throttle you could open in a wider range of settings. The updated engine's extra power and revs take it closer to its 160 horsepower contemporaries like Yamaha's MT-10, but it still seems to have a mid-range that you can use more of more often, and with its sophisticated new rider aids and that slick optional quick shifter, it's devastatingly effective but a little more subtle, I think. Think of it as James Bond to their Jason Statham, and yeah, I know one of those is real and the other isn't. Is it the best speed triple ever made? Well, yeah, it probably is.